This is such an awesome event. Ansley One. We're one company. We are in several locations now, even all the way down to the coast of Georgia. It's all because of you guys. I mean, look at us. We look fabulous. You guys are unbelievable. Look around. Seriously, look around. It's really unbelievable where we started from, where we came from, where we are today. It really just blows my mind every day I wake up. It's really special, and it's all because of y'all. Our company is ground zero for a real estate brokerage the world has never seen. We do things completely differently, and it shows, and that's, you know, why we all get up in the morning. That's why we're all here. That's how we treat people differently in the office. Everything's just different. It just feels like a different company from anywhere I've ever worked, and I think anywhere anybody else has ever worked. We wanted to create a vision to create an agent-centered company, a company that's just all about you, all about the agents, not about how much money the company makes or, you know, anything else other than how do we build a company that helps the agents have a better life, do more business, have more time, all those things. And it's just, it's no accident that we're all together. I've always believed that like attracts like, and this is a special group. And it's a hand-picked group. You know, we've turned down more people than we have invited to join this group. And that's really important because we want this company to feel and act like a family. And that's what we do, and that's the way we operate. Here's how I'm going to spend the next couple minutes, guys. First, I'm going to take a step back and kind of talk about where we started, because there's a lot of new faces in here. And we're going to talk about 2018 and the milestones we had, what we accomplished. And then we're going to look in the future and talk about, you know, where we want to be and how we're going to get there with y'all's help. So a little history. There was a group within another company called the Ansley Group. And we operated out of another company for years. And we wanted to do something different. We wanted to do something together. We started something different, and we all walked out of that company the same day. And we started Ansley Atlanta in December of 2015. I will never forget the founding members that believed in me and believed in the vision of what we were going to do. They never looked back. They never once complained, because we were a startup, copy machine, Wi-Fi, all these things that we, you know, might not have thought about, you know, when we decided to jump ship. You know, it's one of those things, we were coasting along. Everything was cool. Everything was fine. But we all just kind of wanted to do something a little different, kind of wanted to take a little bit of a risk. And we did it. And they did it. And they did it with me. I'll never forget it. Believe me, I had no idea what I was getting into. I was just a real estate agent. But starting a business from scratch, it's hard. We learned a ton our first year, and we would not be the company that we are without the leap of faith of our founding members. So please stand up if you were a founding member and walked out with us back in December of 2015. Yeah. That's where it all began. So we've grown from 8 of us in one location now to over 150 people between agents and staff, and we're strategically growing every single day. We're anywhere from North Atlanta to Midtown, where we've signed a lease and actively under construction, all the way down to the coast of Georgia. We are an organization of multipliers. What's a multiplier? Well, a multiplier is somebody that radiates energy outward. right, radiates energy outward. We don't absorb energy inward. We all radiate it out. That's cool, and that works. We care about each other. We want to help one another. We want to make a difference and an impact. Success breeds success, and it's contagious. And I think that's one strong point that really resonates, that, you know, we've got a championship team here, right? And it's just getting better and better. I hate to say this. It's kind of like Alabama a little bit, right? They kind of started, and I wish I could say we're on the way with Georgia. We're on the way with Georgia, but, you know, they've got 7 national championships. They're always in the top of the heap, and we'll be there with Georgia, believe me. But, you know, that's kind of the way it's working, right? And now we've got this great team and group, and it's only getting better because we've got the greatest foundation that any company can have.
17 national champions.
Oh, gosh. Oh, gosh. So I want to talk about last year. Last year was a great year, and we had a tremendous amount of milestones. We sold 1,300 houses. That's a lot. 1,300 houses. We did right at $800 million in sales volume. That's a lot. Give it up for yourselves. $800 million. That's in year 3. It's pretty good, guys. What I'm probably most happy about is we gave Children's Healthcare of Atlanta over $100,000. That's the kind of organization we are, guys. We're helping people inside the office. We're helping people outside the office. We're changing lives, and we're helping kids. It's pretty good. We opened up Ansley North a few months ago, a group of about 20 folks, and they're thriving under the leadership of Rhonda. And Ansley North, please stand to be recognized. They're doing great up there, and we continue to just be, you know, blown away with the success that they're having. We signed a lease for Ansley in Town. Construction has started for that build-out, and we have put together an amazing group of agents and staff that will call this office home. Please stand up if you're going to be going over to the Ansley in Town office. We've got a lot of new agents that y'all have seen that's joined us for that. But that's the thing, guys. So going back to Ansley 1, we're still one organization. So with people in town, with people in Atlanta, we're always going back and forth between the offices. And that's also how we're co-brokering those offices, which is a new concept that Chris Burrell is going to share a little bit with y'all today about that. In 2018, we also hired Atlanta Realtor Association past president Lane McCormick to be our Chief Strategy Officer. Lane, please stand up and be recognized. Ansley Developer Services in 2018 has brought on 2 new partners, Dimitri and Nick Cassini. I don't know if a lot of people have met them. I know Nick is in the house. Nick, can you stand up and be recognized? They are working alongside with David Tufts, and this company has grown well over 100% in a year. And this company now has projects spanning all over the world. We've got projects in Delray, Florida, condos that are starting in the $4 million, going up to about $17 million. We've got a project in Costa Rica, and we will be announcing a lot of other projects throughout the world, which is very exciting to have that outreach. So let's give a round for Ansley Developer Services. Your decision to join Ansley Atlanta was a great one. We are one company, and success leaves clues. When you look back these are the three things that I think most have impacted our productivity. We have a win-win relationship. Everybody benefits from this partnership. Collaboration in spades. Our small groups that that Julie Harris, let's give it up for Julie Harris. How amazing is she? Julie, will you stand? She might be waiting for our speaker outside, but she's just done unbelievable. But our small groups, guys, going back to collaboration, I really hope that everybody in this room, there are some great, thriving small groups that we've started, but we need more, and we need more activity within them because they are incredibly important and really, really good and a wonderful thing. Culture. Great people to work with. I've already hit on that. It's really rare to experience such a spirit of cooperation in an extremely competitive environment. Resources. We want to make sure, I want to make sure, our leadership wants to make sure that you guys have everything you need to be successful. Again, we're an agent-centered company, and we want to make sure that you have all the tools, like First IO and everything in between. In closing, my hope for each of you individually is that you will leverage all the resources available to you. In exchange for that, you will give back to the company by leading an initiative that benefits everyone. So that's the ask for you guys, right? We're going to do everything in our world to make sure that you have everything you need to change your lives, to change your family's lives, to be successful, to feel good when you wake up in the morning, and have that work environment that you just love coming into the office. But we ask you guys to keep it up, keep up what you're doing, and let's get other good folks that we want to join this movement with us. So what does the future hold? That's up to you guys. I mean, I challenge all of you to continue to try new things. You got to try new things. Continue to get uncomfortable. I know y'all love me saying that, but continue to get uncomfortable. Continue developing new habits that alter your productivity, right? Change the way you do stuff that'll better you for this year. I'm so optimistic to see all the success that the future holds for every single one of you, for our company, for our new offices, and everything in between. Thank you for being there, for my family. Thank you for being there for your fellow agents and your brokers and support staff. And let's just keep it up, and thanks for the ride. Appreciate it, guys. Jesse Itzler only eats fruit till noon. He loves Run DMC. He enjoys living life out of the box. In fact, he doesn't even have a box. The author of New York Times bestseller, Living with a Seal, co-founded Marquis Jet, the world's largest private jet card company. He sold it to Berkshire Hathaway, NetJets. Jesse then partnered with Zico Coconut Water, which he sold to the Coca-Cola Company. He's a former rapper on MTV. How cool is that? My dream. Boom, shaka, bow, wow. When he's not running ultra marathons, that's 100 miles at a time. He's eating vegan food, or he's being a dad to his 4 kids. Jesse can be found at the NBA's Hawks games, where he's an owner of the team. He's also just an incredible human being, and I call him a good friend. He believes in building a life resume and tapping into everything that life has. I'm totally excited to turn this mic over to Jesse.
Hello, hello. What an introduction. Rapper. But no, I can see it. If all else fails, man, if all else fails. This real estate thing doesn't work out for you. Give me this. That was an amazing introduction. I hate introductions. I got shell-shocked at an introduction in 1991, and I'm still not over it. Right after college, I was signed to a record label called Delicious Vinyl. And Delicious Vinyl had two huge acts at the time. One was a guy named Tone Loc, not to date myself. Anyone remember Tone Loc? The other was a guy named Young MC who won a Grammy for his song called Bust a Move. I was the next artist signed to the label. And before my album came out, I got a call from the owner of the record company who told me that they were having a concert in Atlanta at the Georgia Dome. Right here, and they were busing in 36,000 inner city kids from all over the state of Georgia for this concert that they coined the Increase the Peace concert, because they were going to have black artists and white artists come together in this community bonding event that they called Increase the Peace. The day before the concert, Vanilla Ice canceled, and they needed a white rapper. You're looking at them. They volunteer me to be the white act. So I fly in from Atlanta and I go to the Georgia Dome, and as soon as I get there, I recognize immediately like the place is unruly, like really unruly. There's fist fights going on in the crowd, and they have the house lights on to control, and the police are everywhere, and the kids are booing every single act that came on stage. They were booing them off stage. So the first guy up was LL Cool J in his prime. They boo LL Cool J off the stage. I'm sitting over here in the green room about to go on next to sing my song called Shake It Like a White Girl. So I called my mother from the green room. I called my mom. I'm 21 years old, and I'm like, Mom, I got a really big problem, man. They're booing LL, and I'm up next. And she said, Sweetie, just be yourself, and they're gonna love you. Doesn't work like that, Mom. So I get up on stage. So the MC gets up and he's like, ladies and gentlemen, all the way from California, give it up for my main man, Jesse James, which is my stage name. Don't Google it. Definitely don't Google it. So I'm about to go on. I'm sitting in the green room. I have these T-shirts that the record company gave me. I have these T-shirts, so I grab them and I come up on stage and I'm like, there's this section over here, because I'm looking at the kids in the front row and they're pissed that I'm even invited to this thing. But I got these T-shirts. So I'm like, there's this section over here who wants some free T-shirts. The kids go crazy. I throw them out. You guys on my right, you want some free T-shirts? They went nuts. I threw them out. Middle section, you want some free T-shirts? They all stand up. I threw them out. I said, thank you very much. Salt and Pepper's up next. I got the fuck out of there. Shit. Never let them boo you was my first business lesson ever. I'm sorry I'm late. I live 3 miles away from here. And I had a parent of 4 kid moment. I said in my GPS, Piedmont Driving Club, and it took me almost to Alabama. There must be 2 of these things. I'm like, this doesn't really look right as I'm driving. Anyway, I want to give you guys about, I don't know how much time we have, but what? We can go for a minute? All right, cool. I'll give you about 15 minutes on my journey as an entrepreneur. It was very unconventional, but I think there'll be some nuggets that everybody can apply, maybe become better at sales, whatever lane you're in, but I'll share some of my tricks, trade secrets. And then 15 minutes about telling a story about a Navy SEAL, a guy coined the toughest man on the planet, who came to live with my wife, myself, and my children, and the life lessons I learned from him and how I apply them to all the buckets of my life. Cool? Cool. A little bit about me. I went to American University in Washington, D.C. Anybody? You went? Come on.
I graduated from there.
Yes. What year?
1987.
Oh, you're smarter than me. I could have got in there that year. That's good. I've never met anyone, actually, that went to American. Well, good. We're alumni partners. Well, the tuition at American University today is $40,000 a year. So for 4 years of $160,000 of my parents' hard-earned money, I can honestly say I remember one thing. I call it the $160,000 lesson. How many things do you remember? All right. Same thing. We did go to the same school. My senior year of college, I was at a crossroads. I was either going to go into the music business, which I loved, or I was going to sell a product called Aunt Franny's Brownies. I had a roommate in college who had an Aunt Franny, and every month she sent us a shipment of brownies. I don't know what she put in these brownies, but they made everybody happy. It's like, whoa, I could kind of market these brownies, man. These work. So for my final exam in this advertising class that I was taking, we had to create a fictitious brand from scratch, soup to nuts. Everything, slogan, billboards, jingle, which I was good at. And I was like, okay, I'm going to use this advertising class as my R&D department. If they like Aunt Franny's brownies, I'll put together the campaign, I'll roll it out, and I'll go in the brownie business. So the way the final exam was set up, there were about 150 people in the class. It was pretty much the size of this room. And everybody had hand in their campaign and their final project, but 5 people were going to get picked at random and present in front of the class, not only their campaign, but present a State of the Union of the industry they were going into. I'm a senior in college. There's like a 5% chance I'm going to get picked. Nobody prepared for the oral presentation. You didn't want to get picked. So the professor comes in the first day, and for the final, he goes, I'm going to do this the democratic way. Everybody write down your name on a piece of paper, and I'll take off my hat. I'll pass the hat around, and I'll pick out the 5 names of the people that are going to get picked. Sitting to my right in the classroom was a guy named Ronnie Cohn. Ronnie Cohn was a professional jackass. Ronnie Cohn bullied half of this classroom for 4 years of college, so when the professor came to me, I took 20 pieces of paper, I wrote Ronnie Cohn's name down, and I stuffed him into the hat. I was like, Cohn, 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 Cohn. Put him in the hat, he goes around, true story, the professor picks out the first name, I swear to God, the first name that comes up, Jesse Itzler, the jackass, did the same thing. Asshole. So I get up there to pitch Aunt Franny's brownies, and 30 seconds into my pitch for $160,000 of my parents' hard-earned money, our parents' hard-earned money, the professor says, stop. And he said, son, I want to know what is your point of differentiation. I said, I'm a brownie. I'm home-baked, I'm moist and delicious. I could be gluten-free if you want me to be gluten-free. And he was like, no. He said, son, there's 1,000 brownies that come out every year in this country. Substitute it for real estate executive, sales rep, whatever you do, there's 1,000 of you that come out every single year. And he goes, and if you want to make it when you graduate from this university, you better be a much different brownie than everybody else. Sit down. So I sat down in my chair, and I was really embarrassed in front of the class, and I realized, like, I have a built-in point of differentiation, and it's not brownies. I'm a white rapper. It's 1989. There are no other white rappers. Like, I'm going to go into the music business. Duh. So I had this, at that point in my life, I'd never been in a studio. I don't play an instrument. I had no connections. I'm not a great singer. In fact, the only way that I could really make a demo at that time was to take an instrumental, the music portion of a CD, and put it in the CD player, go over to my answering machine while the music was playing and hit record, and leave a little rap. And that was my demo. And I sent that demo to every record label and got no responses. So I rejigged of course I didn't. So I rejigged my calendar senior year. So I had no classes on Friday. Every Friday I would take a Greyhound bus from Washington, D.C. to New York City, and I would sit in the lobby of a different record company every Friday and hand out this cassette that I made on my answering machine to anyone that walked out, and got no responses. So I realized with no connections, no money, the only way that I could ever kind of get discovered was to drive traffic to my answering machine. So I started calling up every record executive that I could find their number and leaving my dorm room number on their answering machine and hanging up, hoping someone would call my machine. Well, one day I did get a call. I got a call from a producer. And the producer said, man, there's something here, but we got to professionalize this. I just got a job in New York, in Queens, working at a studio, and the last session ends at 2 o'clock. I clean up the studio until 7. When the next session starts in the morning, no one's there between 2 and 7 a.m. If you come to New York, I'll get you in the studio when nobody's looking. So I moved to New York City, and I took a job as a kiddie pool attendant, because that was the only job that allowed me to ride my bike every single day, 22 miles from Roslyn, Long Island, where I'm from, to Corona, Queens, where the studio was, and get back in time in the morning to get to the kiddie pool so I can make some money. So one day I'm riding my bike on the LIE. Anybody here from New York? Any New Yorkers? One. Okay. Good to know I'm amongst friends. I'm riding my bike on the LIE. If you guys were ever on the LIE, the two New Yorkers here, and ever saw anyone on a bike, it had to be me. because nobody else was stupid enough to do it. And I'm riding on the LIE, 1 in the morning. I get to the studio, and when I walk into the studio, on the mix board in the studio is a cassette. And it's the cassette that changed the entire trajectory of my life. So the cassette was by a Brooklyn-born rap guy named Dana Dane. Doesn't matter if you know who Dana is or not. But Dana, you do, okay. Dana was a big artist in the 80s, one of my favorite artists. His first album was a smash, but nobody heard his second album because he just finished it the session before me, but he accidentally left it on the board. So I asked the engineer if I could borrow the cassette and listen to it. No one's heard it, and I'll bring it back. He goes, sure. So the next day I'm flying to LA. I'm listening to it on my Sony Walkman. To further date myself, I'm 50, and I'm listening to it on my Sony Walkman, and I'm reading a magazine, and in the magazine it says the owner of Delicious Vinyl Records, Tone Loc, Wild Thing, Young MC, Bust a Move, this hot independent label. The owner's favorite artist is Dana Dane. So when I land, I cold call the label, and that's a theme in my life. If I want to get something done, I create my own luck. Pick up the phone and call. I'm not scared to call. Show up, bump into someone. If I want to track Bonneau and I need him, I'll find him and bump into him in the street or something. I create my own luck. I cold call him. I get all the way up to the CEO, the founder, Mike Ross's assistant. I said, hey, I'm a friend of Dana Dane. I know that Mike is a big fan of Dana's. There's an old saying by Harry Truman. If you can't convince them, confuse them. She has no idea what I'm talking about, man. She comes back on the phone. A minute later, she goes, Dana, Mike is so excited to meet you. If you could come for 2 o'clock for lunch, Mike will have lunch with you. Dana will be there at 2 o'clock. By the way, Dana's a black guy from Brooklyn with gold teeth. 2 o'clock comes, I buzz myself in, I'm here to see Mike. They whisk me up, you must be Dana. They put me in the office with all these gold records. I'm sitting down, and in comes Mike Ross. And he looks at me and he says, who the are you? I said, I'm Jesse, I work with Dana. He said, you work with Dana, what do you do? I said, I'm a rapper. He looks at me and he goes, that's impossible. I said, no. I said, well, while we wait for Dana, can I put my demo in? He goes, sure. And I go, to myself, great, because we're going to be waiting a really long time for Dana, somewhere in Brooklyn. So I put my cassette in, and 30 seconds in, he says the 4 words that every struggling artist wants to hear. Who is your lawyer? I got a record deal. Except I didn't have a lawyer. I had a dad. My dad owned a plumbing supply house in Mineola, Long Island. So I'm like, my dad's my lawyer. I didn't know what else to say. I go, my dad's my lawyer. He goes, your dad's your lawyer? I go, yeah. He goes, great, I'll set everything up with your father. So I leave the office and I call my dad. I go, Dad, it's your son. I'm 21 years old. It's your son, man. I got a record deal. Like, your son got a record deal, but don't screw it up. So my father's from Brooklyn. And he could be like, take advantage of my son, I'm gonna fly out to California. I said, all I want you to do is when they call you is say, please fax all the documents to my assistant. And my father goes, I don't have an assistant. And I'm like, yes you do, Mom. So they faxed all the documents to my mother, and I signed them sight unseen. Boom, big mistake. But then I made a bigger mistake. I took my foot off the gas pedal. It's very important when you hit your goals, whatever your goals are, you check the box, you reset your goals, and you move on. I didn't do that. That was my only goal, get a record deal. So I took my foot off the gas pedal. I don't get picked up for a second album. I get thrown off the label. I move back to New York City with 2 things on my resume. Kiddie pool attendant, rapper. It's not going to get you here to talk to this group. But my wife always says you find your true purpose at the intersection of these 3 things. What it is you love to do, what you're good at, and providing something positive to the world. If you figure out what it is you love to do and you do it, you become really good at it, and you're offering some kind of product or service to the world, you've really found your purpose. I love music, I love sports, so I decided to marry those 2 things. And I wrote a theme song for the New York Knicks. It was called Go New York Go. The Knicks paid me, I was 22 years old. The Knicks paid me $4,000 for the song. By the time I paid the studio, engineer, lawyer I now had, drummer, singer, all the talent, it cost me $4,800 to do the song. That's not a great business model. But the Knicks got hot, and the song became the #1 most requested song on New York radio. And every team that came into Madison Square Garden was like, why don't we have a theme song like that? And I realized at that moment, that's my brownie. That's my brownie. Everybody else is trying to get their songs on radio or in Tower Records, but no one's doing theme songs for professional sports teams. So I started writing theme songs for professional sports teams, and I sold that company to a public company called SFX. The owner of SFX had a timeshare on a private jet. And he invited me and my partner and myself on his private plane as guests. And when I walked onto the plane at 20-something years old, it was like that scene in The Wizard of Oz when everything goes from black and white to color. I was like, people fly like this? What? And I turned to my partner, I'm like, I want to fly like this. He's like, me too. I'm like, let's start a private jet company. And he was like, definitely. And by the time we landed, like, we're going to start a private jet company, except we had no private planes. We had no planes. We had no money. We didn't know anyone rich. But we had an idea, and our idea was very simple. What if we could offer people all the benefits of flying privately? Planes available on short notice. You don't have to take off your shoes, go wherever you want, super easy, available like immediately with none of the hassles. You don't have to worry about the pilots, maintenance, scheduling, we'll do all that. And what if it worked in a very simple model, like a debit card? You prepay for 25 hours, you fly 2 hours, you have 23 hours left. We called that idea Marquee Jet. Super simple, except we had no planes. So we took a meeting with the 800-pound gorilla, NetJet. 650 planes in the fleet, owned by Warren Buffett, multi-billion-dollar company, and we pitched this idea in a PowerPoint called Marquee Jet. And 12 minutes into the meeting, Rich Santulli, the CEO of the company, said, stop. He said, guys, this meeting is over, and threw us out. And this was a direct quote. He said, if you think, and it really pissed me off when he said this, he goes, if you think I'm giving 2 kids that probably didn't break 1,000 on their SATs, I got a 980. I've convinced myself I've broken 1,000. He goes, there is no way that's happening, and he threw us out of the meeting. So we go out of the meeting dejected because our amazing idea is now down the tubes, and the president comes running up and grabs me, and he goes, that was unbelievable. Unbelievable. We got thrown out in 12 minutes. He goes, Rich Santulli, he doesn't give anybody 12 minutes. Come back, there's something here, I'm gonna get you another meeting, but you gotta bring it to life and repitch it. We realized we could never sell this thing with a PowerPoint. Santulli, your customers, they see thousands of PowerPoints or pitches or whatever it is. We had to bring it, we had to be a brownie. We had to do it differently. We had to shake it up. So we brought in our own focus group. We set up a table right here next to their boardroom table, and one by one, 8 people came in. Carl Banks from the New York Giants, Run from Run DMC, a powerful female real estate mogul from New York, and they stood up. And they just said, we would never buy a fraction what NetJets was selling, but we would buy a 25-hour jet card if it was available. Santulli said at the end of the meeting, you know what, if you guys put up your own money or raise some money, I'll give you a shot. A year later, we were bigger than NetJets. We did $5 billion in sales, and we sold the company to Warren Buffett. Yeah. The first thing you have to do in business when you start out is build, as an agent, as a rep, whatever you're doing, you have to build credibility. You have to build credibility. And the way that we had to build credibility was to sign up people that were reputable. Because if I was going to pitch this young lady and say, you want to buy time on my airplane, she'd be like, well, who flies with you? If I said my father, my next door neighbor, what's that? But if I was like LeBron James, Bill Clinton, Oprah Winfrey, she'd be like, whoa, they must have vetted this. Like, this shit is real. So my job was, I was in charge of the entertainment vertical. So one day, I was in a cab, I lived in New York City. I only wore shorts until I was 35 years old. So I'm in shorts in a taxi cab going to our office, which was the size of this table at Marquee Jet. I get a ding on my device. If I get a ding on my device, it means we have a customer. So I look at my device, it says that Jennifer Lopez, Matt Damon, and Ben Affleck, what's his name? Yeah. One's a duck in a commercial, Affleck. The actor, they're in a plane going from LA to Sundance, Sundance Film Festival. I'm like, that's our entire entertainment vertical right there. So I said to the cab driver, take me to LaGuardia. So I divert from the office and I go to LaGuardia, and they're taking a demo flight. So they're going to try our program. And I get on a plane, I fly commercial Delta, boom, to LA. I go over to the private terminal. I want to close these guys. I want to pitch them. And it turns out they got a scheduling upgrade to the Boeing business jet. The Boeing business jet's like Air Force One. It's a $55 million airplane with a bed. It is ridiculous. So I go out, I see Jennifer Lopez, I pull out my card, I said, Miss Lopez, I'm Jesse Itzler, I'm the co-founder of Marquis Jet. We got you this amazing upgrade today, sort of. I mean, kind of was lucky, it was a scheduling upgrade. I just want to introduce myself. And she looks at me, and she goes, how old are you? I said, well, ma'am, I'm 28 years old. She goes, you're 28 years old, and you own this airplane? Warren Buffett owns the airplane. So I looked at her dead in the eye, and I said, yes, I do. She comes a little closer. She goes, how many of these airplanes do you have in the fleet? I'm like, well, ma'am, we have 650 of these airplanes in the fleet. She says, you own 650 of these airplanes? I looked at her dead in the eye and I said, yes, I do. I said, in fact, I'm just going with you. I'm just going to Sundance too. I'm going to watch some of the films. I'm going to fly with the crew. If you guys need anything, let me know. We get up to 41,000 feet. I get out. I want to pitch him on the program. I start talking to Matt Damon, and Matt says to me, you seem like a pretty cool guy. If you're not doing anything tonight, and I'm like, doing anything tonight? I don't even have a hotel room. He's like, we're having this release of our new project Greenlight. It's going to be an intimate affair, and we'd love for you to come by if you want to come by. We could talk about the plane there. I'm like, cool, I'll do that. So we land, they get in their limos and go. I hail a taxi, and I start looking for a hotel room. I find one 30 miles away. I go to the Gap. I get something that looks pretty much like this, and I head over to the intimate affair. Matt, you're wrong. It's not an intimate affair. There's 4,000 people trying to get through one guy with a clipboard to get into this thing. And I'm like, there's no way I'm on the list. I'm never going to get in, and I'll never get this chance again. I have to make it happen. It's like that Eminem moment, you know, you get one shot. I got to have it. So I walk over to the guy with the clipboard, and I said, hey, I'm Jesse Itzler. Show him my license. I'm on Matt and Ben's advanced scout team. They're going to be here in 20 minutes, but they're not going to come and leave the hotel until I call them and tell them that the room is set up exactly the way they want it. The guy's like, okay, lifts this thing in, and in I go. So I go in and they have all these tables set up. You guys remember Pauly Shore from MTV? Yeah, Pauly Shore's got a table next to like Pitt, Clooney, Damon. He's next to Matt. That's where I need to be. I take his name card, I flip it upside down, I write Itzler, my name. Now I'm sitting next to Damon. So they come in, I'm sitting down, we start talking, but it's too loud to talk about the Marquis Jet program. So I said, Matt, when are you flying back to LA? He goes, I'm going back on Sunday. I go, so am I. Why don't you fly with me? He goes, I go, yeah, I'll set it up with your assistant. So I called my partner. He's like, did you close everybody? Did you get them signed up? I'm like, no, I need a G4 Sunday. He goes, a G4, that's our entire marketing budget for the year. We had to pay for our flight time. That was our entire spend. I go, after a lot of arguing, I go, we need a G4. It's going to light up this whole program. Give me a G4. And he puts a lot of pressure on me. My friend Tim Grover always says, pressure's a privilege. As entrepreneurs, as sales reps, as people that are coming up, Bonneau building this company, you need pressure. Great things happen after you put pressure on your plate. If you don't have pressure on your plate, you're going through life like this. We'll get to that in a minute. I want the pressure. So with the guilt, with the pressure, we put the G4 on, and by the time we landed, signed them up. That was the start of a company that built credibility, that did $5 billion in sales. During my journey at Marquis Jet, I wanted to raise money for charity, but I didn't want to have a golf outing. Everybody was having a golf outing. I decided I wanted to be a brownie and do it differently. So I decided I was going to run 100 miles nonstop in under 24 hours. I signed up for the USA Ultra Marathon Championship. I went from my couch to the USA National Championship because all you had to do is register for $60, and it gave myself 90 days to train. And during the course of my training, I did a lot of research on hydration and nutrition. I finished, by the way, in 22 hours and 50 minutes. It put me in a wheelchair for 4 days, but I finished. And when I was doing my research on hydration and nutrition, I realized everything pointed to coconut water. Because I was asking myself, how much do you have to drink? How many calories do you have to take in? How much do you have to consume in every hour so you don't bonk? And everything pointed to coconut water. I became the human guinea pig for coconut water. And when I finished this race, I was like, this is going to be the next big thing in beverage. So I spent a year traveling the globe trying to figure out how to import coconut water. And I realized that Santulli was right. I got a 980 on my SAT. I couldn't figure that shit out. Like that, man. It's like, Bonneau figured that out. But I knew I could market it. So I partnered with a company called Zico that was doing $3 million in sales, and 2 years later we sold that company to Coca-Cola. My wife is an entrepreneur. She owns Spanx, a couple of miles from here. We live in Atlanta, 4 kids. We're part of the Atlanta Hawks ownership group, and my business career went full circle back to music about a year ago when I was at a dinner party, and the host, this is a great exercise to do for you guys, the host of the party asked everyone to go around the table and name 3 people that were living that they would want to have dinner with. Who would you want to have dinner with? And we got all the regulars, Oprah and, Michelle Obama and Zuckerberg and Buffett. But when it came to me, all 3 of mine were rappers. And the reason was I wanted to meet the guys that changed my life as a 14-year-old kid growing up in New York, and I wanted to thank them. I wanted to ask them how they wrote their songs and how they stayed relevant. So after the meal, I invited my 10 most influential artists in my life to come to my house for dinner. I knew 2 of them, and they all came. People are like, well, how'd you get them? How'd you get them? I asked them. That's the way the world works. You put yourself out there and you ask people. You create the luck. You make it happen. You bump into people. And after the dinner, I realized that their journey in music was similar to mine as an entrepreneur in these ways. 1, these guys, when they started out, they had no prior experience in music. And for a lot of people, not having experience is the greatest deterrent. It crushes dreams, right? Like I always wanted to open a restaurant, but I don't know how to market that. I'm scared, and what if nobody comes, and this kind of thing. But for me, not having experience was the greatest blessing, because it guaranteed that everything that I've done in my life, whether it worked or not, would have a different result than everybody else. It guaranteed that I would be a brownie. I always tell my staff, I always tell my employees, if nobody taught you how to do your job, how would you do it? If you ripped up the real estate book like he did, how would you do it? How would you change the game? How would you sell it? How would you approach people? How would you retain your customers? How would you follow up after the sale so you get more referrals? If no one taught you how to do it, how would you do it? Not the playbook. The second thing is that these guys were so young, they had no time to be scared. And once you get over the fear of being embarrassed, it's the most liberating gift you can give yourself. Now, I don't like to be embarrassed. Nobody in here likes to be embarrassed, but I'm not scared of it. But it wasn't always like that for me. When I was a kid growing up, when I was in college, I liked this girl. We were in the same class together with 400 people. She didn't even know I existed. But for 6 months, I had a full-blown relationship with her in my head. I loved her. She didn't know I was even in the class. Because our relationship was going so well, I decided to invite her to my senior formal. But I was so scared that she would say no. I was so scared of the rejection. I asked my roommate. I had to have my roommate call her up and say he was me. I couldn't even call her. Fast forward 20 years later. I like this girl. She's the founder of Spanx. I want to get on her radar screen. I'm about to run that 100-mile race that I just told you guys about. I got to get on her radar. I got to meet. So I call up her assistant. I said, Lisa, this is Jesse Itzler. I'm about to run this 100-mile race, and I will run the entire 100 miles in Spanx, women's underwear, for a testimonial or a donation from Sarah. She puts me on hold. She goes, Sarah, some lunatic is on the phone. He said he wants to run 100 miles in Spanx. Sarah says, I think I know that lunatic. A year later, she married the lunatic. 4 kids. So, yeah. So what happened? What happened between this guy that was so scared he couldn't even pick up the phone and call the girl to this guy that's like, man, I don't care. I'll run in underwear. Well, in between those 2 extremes was a whole lot of self-doubt. Self-doubt is the #1 enemy to success. So if we could all beat up our own self-doubt, we'd all be more successful in every bucket of our lives. How in the world do you do it? That's what I want to talk to you guys about today. So a couple of years ago, I'm running this race. It's a relay race. It's a 24-hour race in San Diego. Here's the format of the race. I did it with 5 friends. It's a relay. You run a mile, you run a mile, you run a mile, I run a mile, whatever team runs the most amount of miles in 24 hours wins the race. I'm with 5 friends. Sitting to my left is the guy that has nobody to relay with. He's his own relay team. He has no friends. 285-pound African-American guy, jacked up, sitting in a chair, just looking pissed, ready for the race. I'm with 5 friends. The race is unsupported. They provide nothing. It's on a dirt, 1-mile, unlit parking lot in San Diego. They don't even provide water. You have to bring all your own supplies. I just sold my company to Warren Buffett. I way overdid my supply. I had a Whole Foods truck pull up. I had a tent, man. I had 4 masseuses, like... What? This guy? 3 items. A fold-up chair, a bottle of water, and a box of crackers. That's it. 285 pounds. I'm thinking to myself, how in the world is a guy that weighs 285 going to run 100 miles or 24 hours with crackers and water with that much weight? And sure enough, at mile 70 miles in, because of his weight, he broke every single bone in both of his feet. He crushed them. And because he only had crackers and water and he taxed his body, he had kidney failure and he was peeing blood down his leg. And I'm like, man, we got to get this guy to a medic. Immediately, airlift this guy, Mr. Race Director, to a hospital immediately. What does he do? He gets duct tape. He duct tapes his feet, picks himself out of the chair, runs another 30 miles to get to his goal, and then runs 1 more in case they miscount it. I gotta meet him. I gotta meet him because whatever secret sauce this guy has, whatever got him out of the chair, there wasn't even an award. He don't get a ribbon, nothing for finishing this race. Whatever got him out of the chair, if I could teach that to my kids, to my employees, if I could learn that and apply that drive to everything that I do, whoa. So I Google him. I learn he's a Navy SEAL. Crazy backstory. I'll give you 2 minutes on him. Black guy, grew up in Brazil, Indiana, 20 miles from the Klan, so he got ridiculed and beaten up, bullied, loses his self-esteem, balloons up to 300 pounds, joins the military, drops out, becomes an exterminator, decides he hates the direction of his life, he has to make a change, decides he wants to become a Navy SEAL, loses 100 pounds to join the SEAL program, loses some friends in a helicopter crash, decides he wants to be a brownie and raise money for the kids of the fallen soldiers. So he Googles the 10 hardest things in the world to do and becomes one of the best endurance athletes on the planet. He breaks the Guinness Book of World Records for most pull-ups in a day, does like 4,030 in 18 hours. He goes from this guy that I saw at the race to this guy. He's engaged. Sorry, ladies. I gotta meet him. So I cold call him. I pick up the phone. He goes, I'll give you 20 minutes if you come tomorrow. I fly out from New York, where I was living, to San Diego for a lunch meeting. We're sitting in the lunch meeting, and 5 minutes into the lunch meeting, I realize I'm never getting the secret sauce in a meeting. I'm never going to get this, whatever he has, whatever makes this guy tick, in 15 minutes. And I looked at him, and I said, would you come live with me and my family for 30 days? That guy. And he looks at me, and I apologize for the language. I know we're in the South, but I'm going to tell you exactly what he said. He looks at me dead in the eye, and he goes, if you're crazy enough to ask a guy like me to come live with you, motherfucker, I'm crazy enough to come. 3 days later, he's at my breakfast table. So my wife called me up. She's like, how's the lunch meeting? I'm like, it was good. He's come to with us. She's like, what? I'm like, there's a bus on the bus. She's like, you met him on a bus? I'm like, actually, sweetie, he's coming to live with us Friday. Friday comes. So at this point in my life, I'm in a great spot. Married, still am. I had 1 child. I now have 4. But I bet like every single person in this room, I was in a routine. And my routine was get up, work out, go to work hard, come home, dinner with my wife, put my son down, watch a little TV, and repeat. Routines are great, but routines can also be a rut. You can't get better doing the same thing every single day, selling the same way, approaching everything, looking at properties the same. You can't get better doing the same thing every single day. And I thought I was operating at a high level. I sold a couple of companies, ran a 100-mile race, but I was so comfortable where I was in my life, I was going through life like this. Back to what I was talking about. Who in the world wants to go through life like this? Man, I want to go through life like this. I want to learn. I want to grow. I want to experience. I want to see what I'm made of. I want to build my life resume. I want to keep putting things on my plate that make me grow. I don't want to be the 80% version of me. But I was so comfortable in my routine, I couldn't get out of it. So I said, man, get me out of my routine. He said, you got to do whatever I tell you, otherwise I'm leaving. Roger that. Friday comes. He comes in my house. He's got a little Huck Finn knapsack, and I'm like, huh. If I'm going to New York City in the winter for 30 days, I'm checking 3 bags. He's got this little, like, knapsack. I'm like, simplicity. Made a mental note of that. We'll come back to that. He comes in. I said, Seal, make yourself at home. I call him Seal. Seal, make yourself at home. My home is your home. He goes, no, I don't have a home. I said, no. Make yourself at home is just an expression. He comes over to me nose to nose, and he goes, I don't operate in expressions. It's going to be a great 30 days. Cool. No more expressions. He goes, in fact, I want to see how strong you are so we can map out the month. So we go up to down to the gym, to the pull-up bar. He says, let me see how many pull-ups you can do. I get on the bar, and I get 8 pull-ups. It's a lie. I got like 6. Exaggeration. I get like 6 pull-ups. He goes, I wait 30 seconds, do it again. I wait 30 seconds, boom, do it like 3 or 4. He goes, wait 30 seconds, drop down, do it again. I get up, I get maybe like 1 or 2, I drop down, he goes, wait 30 seconds, I want you to do it again. I get up on the bar, I maybe get 1 pull-up, and I drop down, I go, okay, I'm done. I could definitely not do anymore. I said, what's next? He said, what's next is we're not leaving until you do 100 more. Maybe in Navy SEAL land that's possible, but in my apartment, that's impossible. I go, there's no way I can do it. And he said, you know what? I already know what your biggest problem is, what our biggest problem is, and that is the limitations that we put on ourselves are self-imposed. The limitations that we put on ourselves are self-imposed. I'm going to prove it to you right now. Get on the bar and give me a pull-up. So I do a pull-up and I drop down. He goes, I want you to wait and do it again when you're ready. And I did it again, and did it again, and an hour and a half later, I did all 100. And I said to myself in that moment, if I'm under-indexing by 100 pull-ups, if I'm leaving 100 pull-ups on the table, what are the areas of my life am I under-indexing in? Like if my sales quota at Marquis Jet is 20 jet cards, X properties, whatever it is. If mine was 20 jet cards, is that because I know I can get 20? It might take a little effort, but I'm going to get to 20. Or should I be like, man, put me down for 40. Force me to have difficulty and get creative and figure out how I'm going to get to 40. Who is putting the limits on who? So he had a rule called the 40% rule. And the 40% rule is when your brain says you're done, you're only at 40%. When your brain says you're done, you're only at 40%, because it's a scientific fact. The way our brains are wired, the first time we experience pain or discomfort on any level, I'm not talking about physical. I couldn't even call a girl. Our brain, as a defense mechanism, sends a signal to our shoulder, taps it and says stop. It doesn't want us to be embarrassed, humiliated. It's stop. When you ignore this, you can't get the property. You can't do it. Someone else is there. There's already when you ignore it and you keep going, that's the difference between heroic success, a good year, and an amazing year. An agency or an empire. It's to break through what you don't want to do and to keep going. He told me every day we had to do something that sucked. We had to get comfortable being uncomfortable. And one day I was living in Connecticut on the weekends. It was a blizzard, and we went down to the water on the lake after a run. He took a boulder and cracked it on the ice, and he went like this, and he jumped in the water. And then he went like this. And I jumped in the water. And when I jumped in the water, I couldn't breathe. And when I could finally breathe and put my shoulders down, I said, I got to get out. And he goes, you can't get out. If you get out, your skin is going to stick to the ice like the kid in Christmas Story. Huh? So he put my hands in my shoes and put my socks on and picked me up and said, don't touch the water, and said, man, we have about 2 minutes. You're going to get hypothermia, because we had just ran. So I started running up an 80-yard hill towards my house, and as I'm running up in my underwear with my shoes on my hands, I see my wife looking out of the window. Not good. So I'd rather deal with him pissed off than her pissed off, to be honest. And we come in, and she moves me to the side, and she goes, Seal, what's the medical benefit of jumping into a frozen lake? And he goes, there is no medical benefit. It's a mental benefit. I want to see how far your husband's willing to go to get to his goals. Man, 2019, here we are. How far are you willing to go? What do you want to sacrifice to get to your goals? You can call it grit, resilience, persistence, mental toughness. Let's call it grit. Grit is the anti-self-doubt. Grit, all research shows, is the #1 indicator of future success. So if we could all add a little bit more grit into our lives, we'd all be more successful. Now, obviously, we're not going to hire a Navy SEAL to come live with us, but you don't have to. There's a famous quote that I love. How you do anything is how you do everything. How you do anything is how you do everything. It's the little things that you do, the little decisions that you make every single day that create an environment in your head of what it is you're becoming. It's very simple, and they happen all the time. We're faced with them all the time, those little decisions. Let me give you an example. The other day, I'm spraying my son down outside with the hose, and I'm spraying, and it's cold, and my wife's like, dinner's ready? And I drop the hose, and I'm like, I'll pick up the hose. I'll clean that up tomorrow. It's just a hose. And I start going inside. And then I'm like, no, it's not. That's not just a hose. That's an indication of what I'm becoming. Lazy. It's okay to not finish what you start. Someone else will pick up the hose for you. I'm putting things off till tomorrow. That's not just a hose. It's those little things, as small as it seems, that determine what you are. Are you a finisher, a quitter, an animal? What are you? It's the little things. How you do anything is how you do everything. So I wrote a book about our journey. It's called Living with the SEAL. I'll have Bonneau, I'll get you guys all a copy of the book. Whether you read it or not, that's up to you. But let me give you a couple of quick takeaways, and we can call it a day, or we can answer some questions. So the first thing is, when SEAL came into my life, he was super disciplined. We're all super disciplined. I bet we wouldn't be here, but I bet everybody here struggles with discipline in 1 or 2 areas of their lives. We all do. So when he left, I decided to write a contract with myself. Does anybody here have a personal mission statement? 1 person, 2 people. Cool. The first thing every business in the world does is they create a mission statement, because it gives them permission to say no and allows the things that they want to do that move the needle in their life forward. We'll talk about a personal mission statement if you want in a second, but I wrote a contract with myself. You want to change your life? Write your non-negotiables on a piece of paper and look at them every day. And I just want to share the last 2 words with you of my personal contract with myself. The last 2 words of my contract with myself will change your life. And those words are, remember tomorrow. Remember tomorrow. When you have a split-second decision you have to make this year, I'll go look at the property tomorrow. I'll call the guy back tomorrow. Remember how you're going to feel about that decision tomorrow. You want to drop out of the marathon at mile 18? Cool. Until tomorrow. You want to drink tequila at the holiday party and take your shirt off and be the life of the party that night? Amazing. Until tomorrow. Think about how your decision is going to make you feel the next day, and watch what happens. 2, people are always like, oh, I don't have enough experience, or I don't have enough time. Like, that sounds pretty cool. Like, you put this Navy SEAL, but like, I could never do that. I don't have the time. Time and experience are the 2 biggest reasons why people don't hit their goals, or why they don't live their life to their fullest. And I did a very, very simple exercise. You can do this. It takes 1 second. I drew a pie chart. I said there's 24 hours in a day. It's the one thing we all have in common. The same 24 hours. I need to sleep 7 of them. You might be 6, 5. I need 7. I take 3 hours a day for myself. Oh, that's impossible. You must have a team of nannies. No. I don't. I have 4 kids, I work, I have a wife, but I still take 3 hours a day for myself. And during that time, it's cumulative. 30-minute walk in the morning, read, take a sauna, whatever it is. When I'm in my time, I'm not guilty that I'm not at work. I'm not guilty that I'm not with my kids. I'm not guilty that I'm not with my wife. Because if I don't do the things that I want to do during the day, if we can't take 10% of the day to do the things that we love, we're not going to be great employees. We're not going to be great parents. We're not going to be great spouses. We're not going to be great sons and daughters. If people take away the things you love to do and you're living for other people, it doesn't work. You got to carve out some time for yourself to do the things that you want to do. Because if my wife says she wants to go to the opera, if I already got my run in, did a little reading, I'm good. I'll go sit through the opera. But if I didn't, I'm pissed at Sarah that I'm at the opera. Take a little time for yourself. The average American works 40-hour work week, 8 hours a day. That still leaves 6 hours a day, and you took 3 for yourself. Now, obviously, you have to commute, you have family, I get it. My point is, nobody in here is in the second chapter, is in the first inning of their life. We're all in the second and third chapters of our lives. The average American lives to be 78 years old. I'm 50. That means that if I'm average, I got 21 summers left. That's not a lot of time, man. All right? I just climbed Mount Washington, one of the toughest mountains to climb in the world. There were no 70-year-olds on the summit. That window shrinks. In 2019, if you want to have a big year, you got to do it. As adults, it's hard to create newness. It's hard to create the drive to be a great salesman or to crush it this year. But you have to do it because the window, those 21 years, man, 27 years, they go fast. It's now. And the third thing is, when the rappers came to my house, that was a bucket list item. And I'm a big believer in bucket lists, but I'm a bigger believer in dropping the B in bucket and adding an F and creating a list. And those are the things that you always wanted to do, but it wasn't the right time. I didn't have enough experience. Those are the things that require preparation, maybe failure, hard work, but those are the things that make you feel most alive. You grow when you step into the unknown. So my one advice before I leave here, there's an old Japanese ritual called the misogi. And the notion around the misogi is every year you do something so hard, one day a year, so different, so out of character, that the benefit lasts the entire 364 other days of the year. We're in January. What's the one thing that you're going to do that's going to define this year, that's going to change, something that you can remember and hold on to and build from before those 27 years go like this? So I have a quote, I'll leave you with this, that I look at every single morning on my wall. It's in my gym. And it says, I didn't come this far to only come this far. Nobody in this room came this far to only come this far. You wouldn't even be here if that was the case. We all want to go like this because we have one shot, and we don't want to be 80, look back and be like, oh, I was the 80% version of what I could have been. But if you want to make changes, you want to have a great year, man, it's up to you, not Bonneau. It's up to you. And you better start doing it now.
Give it up for Jesse, guys. Yes.
I just want to say one thing. You guys are really lucky because you're working under the leadership of a disruptor. And this is a guy that came in and said, you know, I'm going to do it differently. I'm going to approach this differently. I'm going big. I'm going to be loud. I'm going to do my thing. I don't care what anyone else says. I'm going to advertise different online, web, this, that, all the little tricks. And that takes courage. And to be under that kind of leadership and have the freedom to build your own personal, book and just be successful in that environment is really, it's unusual and it's lucky. And I just hope you guys appreciate the opportunity. And you might not get it again. So maximize it.